Welcome to the 17th session of Secrets of Spirituality. We started from the human beings, came down to mammals, came down to birds, came down to reptiles, came down to snakes, came down to insects, then came down to fishes, came down to worms, came down to plants. In this way, starting from the beings having 5 sensory organs, we came down up to the living beings having 1 sensory organ. Now, coming down further one level, amoeba is considered as the animal cell, euglena is considered as the plant cell, and paramecium is considered as the parasitic cell in general. So, even the animal bodies are made up of so many cells. Even the plant bodies are made up of so many cells. Ultimately, it is all these smaller living beings which gradually accumulate themselves, and through the accumulation of the smaller living beings, the bigger living beings' bodies are formed. So as to say, either your body or my body are made up of so many tiny living cells. Now the question is, do these living cells have any sense organs? The answer is no. They don't have a sense of touch. They don't have a sense of smell. They don't have a sense of vision. They don't have a sense of taste. They don't have a sense of hearing. Still, they have food. They extract food from their own surroundings. For their own existence, in a tiny way, in a minuscule way, they consume food in their own style. Amoeba distinctly does not have any mouth. Still, amoeba survives on consuming the minute food particles from its surroundings only. This way, whether it is a type of bacteria, whether it is a type of plant cell or animal cell, whether it's a parasitic cell, basically, why do these organisms are called as cells? Because they have a distinct outer wall for their existence, and within that outer wall, internally, there are many microscopic small organelle arrangements. You can see even inside an amoeba, you can see a nucleus. Inside a paramecium, you can see a micronucleus, macronucleus. Inside a euglena also, you can see a nucleus. And you can see many other minute parts within these cells. If you cut an amoeba into 2 parts, amoeba will become 2 amoeba. If at all you cut any other living body which is macroscopic, except for the worm's body, if you cut any other bodies, the bodies will not become 2 individual bodies. That means in the higher organisms, with the organisms having larger bodies with multiple sense organs, if you cut the body into 2 pieces, the body will simply cease to exist. The life from the body is gone. But in the case of an amoeba, it will become 2 amoeba just by dividing itself. For that matter, any cellular organism, if it has to become into 2, it will simply divide itself. So if you cut an amoeba into 2 parts, amoeba will grow into 2 amoeba. Now the question is whether these cells have any sense organs or sensory apparatus. If there is no sensory apparatus, how do they sense their surroundings? How do they consume their food? The answer is they sense their surroundings without any distinct physical sense organs. And their consumption of food is something drastically different. It is, we can't say it is a consumption of food. We should simply say it's a covering of food. And the food is not the way in which we think about our food. So, as all the plant bodies and the animal bodies are made up of living cells, we should come to a conclusion now that initially God planned all types of these cellular organisms. Gradually, using these cellular organisms only, he developed the multicellular bigger organisms and multicellular bigger physical bodies. And in the physical bodies, one by one, distinct sensory organs have been evolved or imparted. So as such, we come to some living forms which do not have distinct sense organs, but they do have life. So we should come to a conclusion now that the living cells are having zero sense organs, and their way of sensing their surroundings is drastically different from the way in which we sense our surroundings. For example, when you cut a nail in your body, in your finger, if you cut a nail, gradually the nail will grow. That means there is a sensory apparatus within your finger itself that once you cut your nail, it is sensed at the bottom of the nail. Gradually the cells which are at the bottom of the nail transform itself into nail, and the nail further grows without your own conscious decision. The same thing happens when you cut your hair. Where you will not feel pain when you cut your hair. You will not feel pain when you cut your nail. That means there are no signals which are going to the nervous system to make you feel that you lost something. And it automatically grows. Hair also grows, nail also grows, which simply means that it is being sensed by those local cellular organisms, and these cells themselves transform into a particular material as such. So we should say that the living cells have zero sensory organs, still they can sense life, they can sense their surroundings, and they can multiply themselves. And in the case of cells, the reproduction is just by means of division. There is no male and female apparatus as such. There is no sexual reproduction as such, we should say. For that matter, even in the plants' lives, the botanists have identified something called male flowers, female flowers. And even in the case of worms, the zoologists have identified the most of the worms are hermaphrodites. Means the worms are neither male nor female. To some extent, they can be called as both, because they are hermaphrodites. Later on, fish onwards, it is distinctly a separate male body and female body is physical contact giving rise to sexual production of offspring. But in the case of cellular organisms, the multiplication is simply by means of division. One cell gets divided into 2 and it gets multiplied by 2. 2 cells get divided again into 2 and it gets multiplied by 4 now. So the multiplication is nothing but division. This way, God, or the omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent consciousness, intends and implements diverse life forms. Look at these cells. Further, there can be hundreds or thousands of varieties of cells, and each cells with the different appearances, different shapes, different structures. All of them are microscopic. There can be further classifications for cells like pairs and singles. Different typical names or special names given by the zoologists or the microbiologists for all these living organisms. Chains, clusters, spirilla, treponema, borrelia. I am not an expert microbiologist, but I have been telling you that one using microscope and one using telescope, people have been trying to understand the secrets of both. Using the microscope, people are trying to understand the secrets of microcosm, and using telescope, people are trying to understand the secrets of macrocosm. But as such, there is no microcosm and there is no macrocosm. It is all in all, or it is all in one. The fish thinks there is something inside, the fish thinks there is something outside. Actually, whatever is outside the fish, it is inside the fish as well. It is the fish that thinks that there is a separation between the inside and the outside. No, the existence of the body of the fish itself is a material form of whatever is inside the fish is also outside the fish. It is the water which designs and manufactures fishes within it, and it is the water which actually remains inside the body of the fish as well. So spiritually speaking, there is nothing called microcosm, there is nothing called macrocosm. But using microscope, they try to find out the secrets of all these living organisms. And using telescope, they also try to find out the reasons for the existence of planets, stars, galaxies. Now all these people who are searching for the truth everywhere, either outside or inside, they should come to understand that there is nothing called inside and outside. God is every side. And God is arranging different types of materials gradually into life forms and gradually into bigger bodies with increased number of sensory apparatus. So to come to a conclusion now, there are animals as living things. Animals are multicellular living beings. And basically, amoeba is unicellular, hydra is multicellular, and they are all made up of animal cells. Next we have plant cells. Yeast is an example of a unicellular plant. Then cotton plant is multicellular. Basically, they are made up of plant cells. Then we have microbes, which are not visible to the normal eyesight. For example, chlorella, unicellular, and cyanobacteria, multicellular. Then these are giving rise to bacteria. So in nature as such, we can see these three classifications such as producers, consumers, and decomposers. Plants are the producers of food, animals are the consumers of food, and microbes are the decomposers of both. For example, if a plant body dies, gradually the same plant's body will dissolve itself into earth or gets decomposed itself into earth. That means these microbes are required to decompose any living body when the living body ceases to exist or the living body loses its efficiency of survival. Similarly, the animals initially to have a control over the population of plants, the animals are evolved so that the animals will graze or animals will consume the products of the plant. Some animals will consume grass, some animals will consume leaves. In that way, there is a control over the multiplication of the plants. And that is when varieties of plants are also evolved. And on the other hand, to have a control over the grazing animals or to have a control over the herbivorous animals, otherwise they will multiply exponentially. Just to have a control over them, the carnivorous animals are planned. But you can see the ratio here. The number of plants are much larger than the number of animals that consume these herbs. And the number of carnivorous animals are much lesser than the number of herbivorous animals. That means there is a typical ratio. The typical ratio is that nothing should increase over a certain number. And there must be a threat for the existence of every life form. That is why I have been telling you, there is no point in you worshipping God for giving you a longer life. If you want a longer life, live healthy, live happy, live peaceful. You going to temple and you keep on praying to God that give me longer life. It does not work out that way. Because for each body, there is a certain amount of efficiency, and if you keep your body fit and healthy, then you will survive until your old age. Otherwise, in nature, there is always a threat for existence. Only human beings have become skillful and knowledgeable to safeguard themselves. Otherwise, if you see in nature, every being is under a threat from some other being. And unfortunately now, all these beings are under threat from one particular human being itself. So in nature, there are producers, there are consumers, there are decomposers. Whether an animal body dies or a plant body dies, whether a herbivorous body dies or a carnivorous body dies, all these living bodies will get decomposed into earth itself. Now that is the job of the microbes. Even now inside your body and inside my body, there are a certain amount of bacteria, and these bacteria are right now silent because you are living and I am living. The time comes or the day comes or the night comes when the body loses its efficiency to survive, and at that time these bacteria will take over. And this bacteria will simply multiply in a different way so as to decompose the body. That is why whenever a certain person dies, they will wait for a few hours or 1 or 2 days, and then what they do? They perform the after death rituals, they cremate the body or they burn the body, but in general, they wash the body before their final rites as such. Why do they wash the body? The reason is, when the person who was using the body ceases to exist or stops using the body, then the body automatically may urinate, it may secrete feces, or phlegm may come out of the mouth, phlegm may come out of the nostrils, or the body may simply decompose. Body may start rotting, foul smell. That is all the activity of these bacteria, which are the microbes. I told you earlier that if you go to Goa, go to old Goa, go to a church where there is a particular saint's body which has not undergone rigor mortis, and even though it is getting aged, that aging process is much slower than the normal rotting of the body. Now, what is so special about that particular saint? The speciality is when that particular saint meditated, and when he stopped using the body, or if we should say that he left the body in such a condition that right now neither the decomposers and nor the cellular structures are functioning, which means that particular saint has stopped using the body. So there is no beating of the heart, there is no breathing. But at the same time, the microbes or the decomposing bacteria, even they have not come to sense that this body is ready to be decayed or ready to be decomposed. That particular state is what is called as samadhi in yoga. And that is the secret. In Kannada, we have a proverb called Sharanara Gunavanna Maranadalli Kanu. You understand a noble person's life during his death. If the body remains that way, even after he ceases to use the body, then it is a sure fact that he has left the body in such a way that neither the bacteria know that we have to start our work of decomposition, nor the living cells know that we have to continue our working. When the great yogi Paramahamsa Yogananda stopped using his body, he left his body in USA, and people waited for the body to get decomposed. Even after 15 days, the body had the same radiance. Even the heart was not beating, breathing was not happening. He was clinically declared as dead. Still the body was not decomposing, not rotting. They could not wait further because the law of the land could not be violated. So after 15 days, they went for the after death ceremonies. But think about Yogi Raghavendra at Mantralaya, and if he left the body in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, then even now the body is not decomposed. Think about Sadashiva Brahmendra, who told his followers to dig a pit of 20 feet, and he told that he will go and sit down there, and he instructed the people to cover him up. Now think about such great, noble rishis or yogis who consciously go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi such that neither decomposition happens nor life is continuing. That is where in the famous book Yoga Taravali, Adi Shankaracharya says, न जागरो नापि सुषुप्ति भावो न जीवितम नो मरणम विचित्रम. This is what it tells about samadhi. It is neither awakened state, it is not sleeping state, it is not a living state, it is not a dying state. Vichitram, it is a strange state. So now you appreciate that the self is beyond life and death. The self is neither life nor death. The self or the soul or God is neither life nor death. The self is not subjected to time. The yogi's body, which is in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, is beyond time. Any material is subjected to time. Self is not a material. So self is not subjected to time. That is why soul, which is part of the self or part of God, is beyond life and death. There is nothing called living and dying in the case of Atman. That life and death happens only for the combination of cellular organisms which become a complicated physical living body. Ultimately, this body itself is basically composed of animal cells and decomposers in the case of human beings. In the case of plants and trees, it is plant cells and then again decomposers. That's all. That's how this nature's birth and death cycles are happening. In fact, we cannot say birth as a birth and we cannot say death as a death. Whatever you call it as your date of birth is not actually your date of birth. It is the date of exit from the mother's womb. Because before that, inside the mother's womb, there was a serious combination of cellular materials to form the brain, to form the heart, to form the hands, to form the legs, to form the different inner organs, to form your eyes, to form your ears, to form your lips, to form everything that is part of your body. So when do you say you are born actually? When it's a serious combination of so many cellular materials along with the materials that are present in your mother's blood itself, and when the body has been nourished by a supply of nutrition through the umbilical cord, when do you say you are born? So whatever people call as date of birth is basically date of exit from the womb. Similarly, whatever people call as date of death is not actually date of death. It is the date of decomposition of the same combination of materials. Now, if you think that you were born, then you are wrong. Again, if you think that you will die, you are wrong. You are part of God. You are the soul. You are the self. The self is beyond time. The self is beyond life and death. Whatever people call as birth is basically a combination of different materials, and when the body is ejected out of the mother's womb, then they say somebody was born. For that body, a name is given. And somebody say, on this particular day, this particular person was born. When the same body decomposes, then somebody will say, this particular person died, but that name was given to a particular physical body. Who was actually using the body? The indwelling self. If there is a fish inside water, who is actually using that fish's body? The water which is inside the fish. The water is beyond time. The water is beyond life and death. If these facts are understood, then the science of yoga is understood. The secret of the self is understood. People celebrate birth. People fear death. Both are unnecessary. They do not understand that there is no birth, and they do not understand that there is no death. There is only a cycle of karma. If this is understood, half of spiritual secrets are understood. If it is understood about liberation or about reincarnation, then the complete secrets of spirituality is understood. That is enough if you have to understand. Now, if you do not understand these things, whatever other things you have understood or you are going to understand is not going to help you either in liberation or in reincarnation, because that is the law of karma that is happening. So finally, before I go to the next slide, let us simply understand that life on earth is basically because of these three life forms: animal cells, plant cells, and microbes, or Jangama, Sthavara, and then Kosha. Jangama is moving animal cells, Sthavara is stationary plant cells, and Kosha are the cellular organisms. Again, inside the human body, there are so many cells inside the human body. Nerve cells, red blood cells, smooth muscle cells, fat cells or adipose cells, intestinal epithelial cells, striated muscle cells, bone tissue with osteocytes, loose connective tissue with fibroblasts. And at the center you can see an ovum and a sperm. Ultimately, an ovum and a sperm join inside the mother's uterus. And why one sperm and one ovum? Answer will come later on. XX, XY chromosomes. And because of these two different combinations, there can be varieties of bodies. In fact, when any body is being manufactured inside the mother's womb, the body should not have similarity when it comes outside. So that is possible by means of the usage of microscopic cells such as sperms. When a sperm merges with the ovum, a special DNA structure or a special chromosome formula is going to be impregnated within, so that it is going to have a replication. When it is going to have a replication, gradually with the same formula, when the body grows, the body will be distinctly different from both of the parents. Even though there will be a slight resemblance between the father and the mother and the child, there will also be enough differences between the father and the mother and the child in their appearances. That way, there should not be a replication of the same body, otherwise it will be very difficult to recognize each other. So that is the secret why sperm and ovum are implanted within the male and female body, and both are programmed to have copulation. Just like a honeybee or a butterfly does not know that because of which the pollination is happening, and these insects are simply going for having their own food, in the same way, inside the animal's bodies, the sexual instinct is programmed, a desire is programmed in such a way that they will involve in such activities, and because of which there is a variety that is formed inside the womb, and each being that is being designed and manufactured will be distinctly visually different from the previously produced being. If there are 6 children to a parent, let us say 3 sons and 3 daughters, all these 6 children will be having distinctly different appearances. Even among twins also there can be distinctly remarkable differences. All that is because of the plan of making the sperm merge into an ovum. So, just by the merging of the sperm and the ovum, by using 2 distinctly different bodies such as a male body and a female body, a zygote gradually becomes an embryo, and embryo gradually becomes a physical body, and in the physical body you will see different varieties of other cells as well. Ultimately, life is nothing but a combination of many types of cells. If microbes decompose all the living organisms once dead, when microbes dead, what will decompose it? Microbes will never die. Microbes are meant to make you and me die. Microbes will simply multiply each other just by division. I had told you, any cell will become into 2 cells just by dividing itself. So microbes will never die. That is the answer. If microbes are not there in nature, then whole of nature will be stinking. Just imagine if all the bodies which die in nature remain there rotting and secreting dirty juices, and you think about it. If any particular living being on this earth has to die someday, right? Because it is only a combination of materials. There will be childhood, there will be young age, there will be adulthood, there will be old age. There must be death someday, right? Because it is simply a vehicle for the self. All the living bodies are basically a vehicle for the self. Some vehicles are flying, some vehicles are swimming, some vehicles are crawling, some vehicles are running, some vehicles are walking, some vehicles are standing. Otherwise, all these life forms are basically vehicles for the self. The self is using these bodies for its own variety. So when that is the case, any body that is being born is bound to die after aging. And all the dead bodies, if they remain like that, how can there be new life formations? So all these bodies must decompose. If they must decompose, there must be a decomposing mechanism. That is what is this bacteria. So don't think that bacteria will have death. You will have death, I will have death. Bacteria will never have death. Because bacteria is a combination of still smaller material forms. I'm going to tell that later on. I'm already on that slide now. Only in the case of human beings, we have all types of after death rituals like burying in the ground, or then burning, or then in Farsi faith, they'll simply keep the body on top of a hill so that eagles or vultures will come there and they will simply eat the human remains. Only human beings have all these different types of methods which they perform after somebody dies. What about all other animals and birds? When they die, what happens? Nothing happens. No one cries. There is no after death ritual. There is no burial. There is no burning. Nothing. Simply the body decomposes into earth. Whatever is the body made up of, some part of it becomes liquid, some part of it becomes vaporized, and remaining part simply merges into mud itself. And how is it happening? It is happening because of these bacteria, which are the decomposers. That's all. That is the answer. Now let us go still deeper. Right from the first slide where we had a picture of the compressed universe. We have come down and down and down and down and down. Now let us go inside a cell. When we go inside a cell there is a nucleus. Nucleus is called as basically the center of the cell. It is the nucleus which is a decisive factor for the existence of the cell. We are talking about the living cell. Now inside the cell we have nucleus. Nucleus is again comprising of chromosomes. And these chromosomes have a coiled DNA molecule. And this DNA molecule you can see is double helical structure. And in the double helical structure there is a DNA backbone. And the DNA backbone internally contains nucleotides. I am going to tell more about it later on in the next slide. So DNA comprises of deoxyribonucleic acid. Actually DNA itself is a very big molecular structure. Now this molecular structure within contains many nucleotides and it has a double helical structure. For inventing or discovering this particular double helical structure, Watson and Crick were given Nobel Prize. They actually decoded the great secret of nature. Ultimately, a cell comprises of a nucleus, nucleus comprises of a chromosome, and chromosome has a DNA molecule, and this DNA molecule has a double helical structure. Now, each living being is different from the other being because of this DNA's backbone structure, where the arrangement of nucleotides are going to manufacture everybody distinctly different. Otherwise, let us say the DNA backbone is the same with every person, then everybody on this earth will look alike. But that is not the case as such. In nature, there is diversity, there is variety. I have been telling you this Subhashita. Pinde pinde matirbhinnaha, kunde kunde navampayaha, jatav jatav navacharaha, navavani mukhe mukhe. I had told you already about this Subhashita. Now this is a variety. There is variety everywhere in nature. There is a variety in flowering plants. There is a variety in trees. There is a variety in birds. There is a variety in fishes. We have already discussed about this variety. There is a variety in human beings as well. Africans are different. Americans are different. Europeans are different. Chinese are different. Russians are different. Indians are different. Australians are different. They are physically different from each other. Among themselves also they are all different from each other. Even though all Indians look alike. Again, even though all Karnataka people look alike. Again, among all Kannadigas, there is distinctive differences. So, variety is the key of life, or diversity is the key of life. And how variety is forming? How each body is distinctly different from each other? Because each body is manufactured by a particular DNA fingerprint. And that particular DNA fingerprint is the arrangement of nucleotides inside the DNA. And this DNA has a property of self-replication. Self-replication in the sense DNA itself can replicate itself into a helical structure. So, gradually scientists came to know that DNA has its own consciousness, or DNA has its own intelligence. Just like a bacteria has its own intelligence, just like an amoeba has got its own intelligence, just like euglena has got its own intelligence. It is not that intelligence is present only in the human brain. It is not that consciousness is present only with the conscious beings. Consciousness present even with the unconscious beings. This simply means that Even though we call DNA as a combination of nucleotides, as a combination of materials, still there is intelligence, still there is consciousness. I had given an example earlier. When a lizard simply leaves its part of the tail just to make the enemy's attention divert, the lizard leaves parts of his tail. Lizard escapes, tail keeps dancing there. Now the lizard's brain is not there, lizard's body is not there, the tail is separate from the lizard's body itself. Still tail keeps dancing there. And the lizard consciously sheds its tail. Tail keeps dancing, which means what? The tail has got an intelligence to dance. The tail has got a consciousness to dance. And there is a divine purpose there. God planned a lizard body that way. God loves variety. God loves diversity. God is beyond life and death. God is beyond time. God is deathless. Self is deathless. Soul is deathless. Coming back to DNA now. If an arrangement of nucleotides can have its own consciousness, then what should we think about? We should think that even a material, whatever we think as a material, will have its own consciousness, will have its own intelligence. That is when Veda says, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Prajnanam Brahma, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. Veda says directly, truth, knowledge, infinite, consciousness. The final realization is consciousness. Everything is made out of consciousness. The same wordings are told in an Arabic language by Prophet Muhammad. Allahu Akbar la ilaha illallah means the same thing. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. When Jesus Christ says in the Bible, my Father's house has many mansions, that is also the same thing. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. The realized ones tell it in their own languages. All people have to understand that languages are different. Truth is one. Now coming back for the discussion of DNA itself. If DNA can self-replicate, if DNA is made up of nucleotides, if it has its own consciousness, now let us see what are these nucleotides made up of. You can see this picture. Deoxyribonucleic acid, or called as DNA. There is a sugar phosphate backbone. At the left side and right side you can see a sugar molecule and a phosphate. And then we have this particular ATGC. Adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. ATCG. Now, whatever you are seeing at the left side, whatever you are seeing at the right side, that is a sugar phosphate backbone. That is all same in all the human beings. But in between you can see these base pairs. These are bases. Adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, these are the base pairs. You can see adenine is connected to thymine here. Guanine is connected to cytosine here, thymine is connected to adenine here, and cytosine is connected to guanine here. But these can keep changing this way. And this base pair, which is extending inside the DNA helical structure, can have many series combinations as such. Now, because of these base pairs, each person is different from each other. That is what is called as DNA fingerprint. When a sperm merges with the ovum, that is when inside the ovum a different base pair combination gets formed. And that different base pair combination is going to give rise to a different type of body. And that body will not be the same neither as the mother's body nor as the father's body. It will have some difference. Now that is the secret of variety or diversity, where a microscopic combination of base pairs or materials is gradually giving rise to a face which is not looking like other faces. You will be different from your elder brother. You will be different from your elder sister. You will be different from your younger brother. You will be different from your younger sister. You will be different from all your siblings. Even though you people were born through the same father and mother, you will be different. Why? Because the base pair combination that is happening inside your mother's womb is different. Again, why? Because the sperm coming out of your father's body and the ovum that is coming out of your mother's body, they are also distinctly different. Now you may think, sir, all sperms are same. You may think all ovums are same. No. Their times are different. 365 days in a year are different. Seasons are different. The planetary combinations on each day are different. That is where I had told you that astrology is a divine science. The planetary forces have influence on nature. When the planetary forces have influence on nature, naturally these planetary forces have influence on human bodies as well. The sperm produced by a father's body in the month of January will be different from that produced in the month of February, because seasons are different, life is different on each day, weather is different on each day, planetary forces are different on each day. Pranamaya kosha will have a different vibe on each day, and that pranamaya kosha influences the annamaya kosha. So we cannot think that all these sperms which are present in a teaspoon of semen are the same. Again, we cannot think that all the ova that are produced in the mother's body are one and the same. I had asked you in my previous session, you can pick up so many leaves from a tree and arrange all those leaves and find out which are resembling each other. The secret is in the cellular combinations and the secret is in the DNA. As each day in 365 days in a year are different. Again, years are also different. 2020 will not be same as 2019. 2021 will not be same as 2020. Each day is different, each month is different, each year is different. In the Vedic system, there is a method of measuring time. There is something called sankalpa. Whenever they have some havana or a homa or a sacred ritual, the priest will chant a particular mantra. That particular mantra is Om Adya Brahmane Dvitiya Parardhe Shvetavaraha Kalpe Vaivasvatamanvantare Ashtavimshatitame Kalayuge Jambudvipe Bharatakhande Bharatavarshe. This way it goes on. They are visualizing space, they are visualizing time. Adya Brahmane Shvetavaraha Kalpe Vaivasvatamanvantare Ashtavimshatitame Kalayuge. They say that this is Vaivasvata Manvantara and right now this is 28th Kali Yuga. And they also say Jambudvipe Bharatavarshe Bharatakhande. They call this total Asia region as Jambudvipa. So they are visualizing time, they are visualizing space. because space and time are distinctly different on any moment. That is the secret of astrology. That is why astrology or Jyotisha is part of 6 Vedangas. Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirupta, Jyotisha, Chandas. That's why I had told you, whatever Jyotisha is coming on the television channels, that is not Jyotisha. That is some marketing, where someone claims that someone will tell your future, and you believe as if someone will tell your future. Your future is your mindset, nothing else. Your future, your knowledge of the life, nothing else. Your future is your culture, nothing else. So that is the relationship between time and space and materials. As each day is different, gradually the sperm produced by the father's body is different, the ova produced by the mother's body also will be different. Naturally, the next baby which is going to be born will be different from the baby which was born earlier. So that way, the secret of diversity or variety is the combination of base pairs, that is ATGC, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. Now, for this particular combination of these base pairs, Hargobinda Khorana also was given Nobel Prize. They had named something called codons, where each person's DNA will contain codons. These codons means a particular combination of this ATGC goes on. AGTC, AGDGA, AGTCG, that way it can go on. I am showing you only a simple small picture here. But this combination of simply these 4 base pairs or amino acids, we can say, it can go on and it may not replicate the same thing again after about 300 or 400 combinations. It can be AG, GA, AG, TC, GA, TG, CT, that way it can go on. And after about 300 or 400 or 500, the same pattern may start once again. Now, in that case, naturally, you can have infinite types of codons, infinite combinations of base pairs. So, out of the 700 million human beings on this earth, you cannot find a person who is just like you. You cannot. Why? Because the DNA is distinctly different. That is the beauty of God's designing, God's manufacturing. Why human beings were made distinctly different? You should not find another person just like you anywhere else. Otherwise, there will be confusion. So, you are uniquely manufactured by means of a particular codon. Now, some of you don't ask me the stupid question that there are 7 people alike on this earth. That is what you have heard from somebody. Don't ask me that stupid question. If you ask me that question, I'll ask you to find out the other 6 people. Go around earth and find out those 6 people and come back with all those 7 people. You will never find. People keep on telling all those fictitious assumptions. There is nothing like that. In the whole of the surface of earth, you will not find a person who looks exactly like you, because you are uniquely manufactured. That manufacturing is happening by means of the base pairs, codons, DNA. Now, what is this DNA again made up of? Phosphates and sugars, right? In the middle, you have a base pair. At the sides, you have sugars and phosphates, right? So, you have phosphate here and you have sugar here. Sucrose. Again, the sucrose is made up of alpha glucose and beta fructose. Now remember, what to remember? Remember, from where glucose comes, from where fructose comes. Glucose comes from carbohydrates, fructose comes from fruits. Again, remember, we are fruitarians. We are evolved from apes. Naturally, fruits are our natural food, because from the fruits we will have fructose. From the other food grains and from the vegetables we will have starch. Starch will contain carbohydrates. Carbohydrates contain glucose. So the combination of glucose and fructose is sucrose. This sucrose or sugar doesn't mean the sugar which you obtain from the sugar cane. No, not that. Sugar cane was one of the special plants which God manufactured for his variety. He did not manufacture sugar cane so that human beings will have a sugar factory later on and gradually human beings will have a diabetes also later on. That was not the purpose. God designed and manufactured varieties of plants also. Sugar cane was one of such plants. People became selfish and people started growing only sugar canes. That is why now they are suffering because of excessive intake of sugar itself. When I mention sugar here, it is not that sugar here. Here sugar means this particular sucrose, which is a combination of glucose and fructose. So this is the backbone of DNA. There is a sugar backbone, there is a phosphate backbone. Now what is this basically a backbone? What is glucose made up of? What is fructose made up of? What is phosphate made up of? They are all made up of carbon, oxygen, phosphorus. Again you can see hydrogen, OH molecules, H molecules, hydrogen along with the oxygen and hydrogen, all these bondings, and you have phosphorus here, hydrogen bond, hydroxyl bond, oxygen bond, carbon bond, single bond, double bond. You have all studied at least some amount of chemistry in your primary school and high school, right? Please revise all your chemistry knowledge. Now a phosphorus atom along with an oxygen atom along with the hydrogen atom, you have a hydroxyl bond, O and H. Then you have P, then you have C. So all these are what? Atoms. C is one atom, O is one atom, P is one atom, H is one atom. So ultimately glucose and fructose combine what? They contain what? They contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Now think about God's ingenuity. He combines carbon molecules, carbon atoms, not carbon molecules, carbon atom, oxygen atom, hydrogen atom, and he makes a special combination. Later we call it as glucose. He makes one more special combination. Later we call it as fructose. So God combines solid atoms, liquid atoms, gaseous atoms. Oxygen, hydrogen are gaseous atoms. Carbon is a solid atom. And somehow this atomic combination becomes sucrose. Atomic combination becomes a phosphate. And in between this phosphate and sucrose, there is this adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, another base pairs. That is also nothing but what? Amino acids. What are amino acids? Again combination of nitrogen, hydrogen. So what is this actually? Whatever you call as your body is basically what? Basically it is a combination of so many atoms connected together with a specific bond. And what combines with what and becomes what is only known to him. He only knows which one should combine with which one to become which product. Which atom will combine with which other atom to become a particular compound. Only he knows. Omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, conscious self. The self which is beyond time and space. The self which produced time and space. The self which produced life in time and space. What does life stand for? Living in further evolution. I told you earlier, the only purpose of life is to become a better being. That's all. There is no other purpose of life. So ultimately, if you understand DNA, go deeper into DNA. And DNA is made up of amino acids and sugar phosphate bonds. Now they are all made up of molecules. Molecules are made up of atoms. If you say glucose is one molecule, fructose is one molecule, then they are all made up of atoms. Oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, phosphorus, nitrogen. If at all someone says that your body is made up of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, will you believe? You should believe. You may immediately say, no, my body is made up of bones, my body is made up of blood, my body is made up of flesh, skin. You may say, go deeper. What is the bone made up of? Calcium. What is calcium? One atom. What is blood made up of? Hemoglobin. Again, inside hemoglobin, what is it? Again, all these elements. Recall the periodic table which you studied in chemistry. 108 elements in the periodic table. Some are solid, some are liquid, some are gaseous. Out of solid, some are metals, some are semiconductors, some are inert elements. Helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon, they are called noble elements. Fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, astatine, called halogens. Sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, always they will combine with halogens. Sodium will combine with chlorine, become sodium chloride, which is a common salt. Whole of ocean is salty. Now what is ocean made up of? Water. What is water? Salty. What is salt? Sodium and chlorine. Now if I tell you that ocean water is combination of sodium and chlorine, you should believe now. You cannot say, sir, it is H2O, sir. Yes, it is H2O along with the NaCl. It is H2O and NaCl. What is H2O? Two hydrogens, one oxygen. So if I say water is a combination of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom, along with the salt water means it is sodium and chlorine together, you should believe. Right? In the same way, now if I say that your body is nothing but a combination of these 108 elements, out of them not all 108 may be there, only some of them will be there in your body, you should believe. Don't be proud that it is your body. You are using that body, that's all. It is not actually your body. It is the body that self-designed and manufactured as a vehicle. You don't have to be proud of your body. Actually, it is not your body at all. You are using the body for a temporary basis. So ultimately, life is born out of a combination of atoms. At least that you should understand now. Anything and everything you see is basically a combination of atoms. But you will not see the atoms now. You will not see the cells also now. You will only see the physical structures there. But you should understand that everything and anything is made up of a combination of atoms, atoms, atoms. Now, what are these atoms made up of? What are these atoms made up of? If these are all atoms, yellow color, blue color, red color, green color, atoms which are bound. This is only a pictorial depiction of atoms. And this is a whole one molecule. A molecule is a combination of atoms. In Sanskrit, we call it as Anu and Paramanu. Molecule is called as Anu and atom is called as Paramanu. Now, what is a Paramanu made up of? What is an atom made up of? You can see the picture. At the center, there is nucleus. Around, there are electrons. The cyan colored movements are electrons. And at the center, you have nucleus. Again, in the nucleus, you will have protons and neutrons. You know this. You have studied at least this much of physics in your primary school and high school. You know that every atom is made up of nucleus and electrons. Now look at the electrons. Electrons are continuously revolving around the nucleus with their own energy, their own orbit. Some of you who have studied physics in detail could also recall the orbits are called as SPDF shells, atomic weight, atomic number. You can recall all that. Now, if every atom is made up of nucleus and if the nucleus is containing protons and neutrons, around there are electrons moving. What is the charge of an electron? 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs. What is the weight of an electron? 1 point something into 10 power minus 38 kg. Can you visualize a mass 10 power minus 38 kg? Can you visualize a charge 10 power minus 19 coulombs? How tiny it could be, how small it could be. Electron cannot be seen at all even through a microscope. Electron is mass also, energy also, because electron is always moving. If the electron is always moving, what is causing this electron to move around the nucleus? Ask this question to yourself. Why electrons are revolving around the nucleus? What makes these electrons to move around the nucleus? The answer is, whatever makes the earth to revolve around sun, that itself is making the electron to revolve around nucleus. That's all. Yatha brahmandaha, tatha pindandaha. Whatever is energizing this earth to move around sun, that itself is energizing the electron to move around nucleus. It is simply the same law in the microcosm as that of the macrocosm. Yatha brahmandaha, tatha pindandaha. Now, if I say that there is consciousness even in a molecule, in an atom, in an electron, should you not agree? You should agree. If I say that there is an intelligence in the movement of electron, you should agree. Molecules are made up of atoms. Atoms are made up of protons, neutrons, electrons. Again, atoms are 108 or 109. I don't know. I don't recall exactly. Must be it is 108. 108 elements from the periodic table. Now, let us come to a conclusion now, that everything is made up of protons, neutrons, electrons. Let us suffice to say that now. Later we shall discuss a little more about the subatomic particles only. The particles which make up an atom, that we shall discuss later on. Now let us come to a conclusion. All the elements are there, 108 elements are there. All these elements are basically atoms. Atoms are basically protons, neutrons, electrons. So a particular combination of electrons and protons and neutrons becomes a particular atom. That is a particular element in the periodic table. And a particular combination of all these atoms becomes a molecule. And a particular combination of molecules becomes a living cell. And a particular combination of living cells becomes a tissue, an organ, a body system, an organism. And a collection of all these organisms is called as population. And a collection of population is called as a community. And a collection of a community is called as an ecosystem. And the collection of ecosystems is nothing but a biosphere. And the biosphere is nothing but our atmosphere. So, if I say that the earth is basically a living entity with lot of life forms on the surface of earth as well as lot of life forms inside water, what is that basically? So many ecosystems in harmony with each other, and each ecosystem will have its own community of organisms, and all these organisms will have their own team, that is a population. And in that population there is each type of organism. Here it is shown as an elephant. It can be anything else. And each organism will have its own body system, tissues, cells, molecules, atoms, subatomic particles like protons, neutrons and electrons. If I say that you are nothing but a conscious combination of protons, neutrons and electrons, should you not agree now? You should agree. What are you ultimately? All those people who show their arrogance, who show their pride, who show their selfishness, that it is me, it is me, it is mine, it is mine, it is you, it is me. Think in terms of quantum physics. They are just a conscious combination of protons, neutrons and electrons, nothing else. But don't tell them that. If you tell them that, they may hit you. Bhartrhari says, Murkhasya nasti aushadham. Bhartrhari says in this Niti Shatakam, for the stupidity there is no medicine. If there are stupid people around you, don't try to educate them. Let them remain stupid. If you try to educate them, they may attack you back. It is better that let them there that way. Ultimately, they have to learn their own lessons. Lessons will be repeated until lessons are learnt. So now, my dear listeners, if I say that you do not exist, if I say that I do not exist, even though we exist, you may say, sir, you are taking this session now, you exist, no? Yes. It seems as if I exist, it seems as if you exist, but we are temporary. We as egoistic beings are temporary. When we are in the awakened state, we say it is me, it is you. In the dreaming state, we are in a mental world. In the sleeping state, I do not exist, you do not exist. In the sleeping state, it is the self that is designing and manufacturing and maintaining and using all these living vehicles by using atoms, molecules, sugar phosphate bond, base pairs, DNA, nucleus, cells, combination of cells, organs, physical bodies, population, community, ecosystem, biosphere. beyond which we have atmosphere, stratosphere, ionosphere, exosphere, sphere within sphere. But finally, it is the omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent God. God is timeless. God is spaceless. God is speechless. I told the story of Badhwa and Bashkali to you, right? Recall that story. So if I say now that you do not exist, only a conscious combination of atoms exist. A very planned combination of atoms is actually your physical body, whatever you call it as your body. And that is a gift to you by the divine. Very consciously planned combination of so many natural elements is being given to you, designed and manufactured inside your mother's womb for you to respect, for you to nourish, for you to take care of. Don't develop arrogance for that matter now. If the fact is told as it is, accept the fact. Otherwise, you should come back and I should say, Bhartrahari told, Murkhasya nasti aushadam. Bhartrahari also told one particular verse. Manushya rupena mrigash charanti. Those human beings who do not understand that this particular human body is basically designed by God, manufactured by God. They are like human beings. Even though they are human beings, they are like animals moving on the surface of earth. Because animals also do not understand any of these things. These human beings also do not understand any of these things. That is where Bhartrahari again says, Manushya rupena mrigaha charanti. Let me continue. If it is a biosphere, if it is an ecosystem, look at this picture. What a beauty. What a beauty. We know now that everything is nothing but a combination of protons, neutrons, electrons, atoms, molecules. Everything is a combination of cells. We now know. Now with that knowledge, look at this picture. Now you say, what a beautiful combination. What a wonderful combination. At the background, ice-clad mountains. At the front, a serene lake. And this side, what beautiful garden. Even though we know this is nothing but a combination of all these elements, again, we will feel wonderful. We will feel so happy. Why we feel wonderful? Now, can we say beauty is chemistry? Beauty is physics? Beauty is biology? Beauty is mathematics? Even though we see this, after we seeing this, we simply know that it is light falling on these particular objects and light coming back to our ears, eyes, and light going through the lens into the cornea, and then that light falls through the cornea and through the optical nerve, it goes to the brain. We know all that, right? We know that it is different energies which are going inside, and that is when we see this. In spite of knowing all that, we cannot deny that this is beauty. We know physics, we know chemistry, we know biology, we know mathematics. We think that we know many things. Still, how come beauty came? Let us say I give you all those amino acids, all those proteins, all those carbohydrates, all those items I'll give you. You create one rice grain in the lab. You produce one rice grain in the lab. You should give me one rice grain which I should plant or I should sow in my field. It should sprout. Can you produce one such rice grain using all those materials which I give you? Can you produce one drop of blood in the lab? One drop of blood, human blood in the lab. We will give you all types of materials which are present, 108 elements in the periodic table. They are available. Can you produce one drop of blood? Not possible. Can you produce one drop of water which we can drink? We know that water is H2O. We know, right? We know chemistry. Let us say I give you one hydrogen cylinder, I will give you an oxygen cylinder. You should produce one drop of water which I can drink for quenching my thirst. But you may say, sir, it is possible, it will be very expensive, sir. Because hydrogen cylinder, oxygen cylinder, very costly, sir. If at all I ask you to produce 1 liter of water which I can drink for quenching my thirst, you may say, sir, for producing such 1 liter of water, we may have to spend 10,000 rupees, sir. Because so much of hydrogen and so much of oxygen combination in a particular temperature and volume and pressure, sir. Yeah, you are an expert chemist. But look at this and tell me, without spending 1 rupee there, the lake is containing a serene water body. And on the mountains there is that ice, which is again water. And this side of the lake you have a beautiful garden where you have varieties of flowers, varieties of plants. Can beauty be chemistry? Can beauty be physics? Can beauty be mathematics? Can beauty be biology? A child looks so beautiful, so cute, so cheerful. Can we simply say, when looking at a smiling, cute child, can we simply say, no, it is nothing but a combination of DNA and RNA, sir. It is nothing but a combination of epithelial cells and skin cells. It is nothing but a combination of carbohydrates, proteins and fats, sir. No, sir, body is not a body, sir. It is simply a combination of 108 elements, sir. You only told us, no, sir, till now. That only, sir. If you say that you only told us now, no, sir, I'll ask. Now I am only asking you, no. Can you say that beauty is that way? If it is that way, can you produce such beauty on your own? Human beings have a lot of proud on their abilities that they can do whatever they want to do on this earth. Now I am challenging. Produce 1 rice grain in the lab and give me that which should sprout. Produce 1 drop of blood in the lab. Let us close all the blood banks. Produce 1 drop of water. Let us have that hydrogen and oxygen cylinder in the kitchen. We don't have to have a connection of Kaveri water at all. If that is all not possible, just remember God and admire and respect and pray. Human beings need not be proud of their technical knowledge, technical intelligence, scientific knowledge, technology, engineering, medical adventures, medical achievements, all types of businesses, commercial adventures. Human beings need not be proud that way. Now, if you cannot do a small thing which I am challenging you to do, then better simply appreciate life as it is and accept life as God's gift to you. Keep on thinking about this. Let me see you tomorrow. There is something in the chat box. Finally, the formula of God for universe is explored now. Yatha Brahmande Tatha Pindande. Fine. Okay. Let me end today's session. See you tomorrow. Day by day, the number of people attending my session are reducing, and that is what is expected. Sacred things will remain secret.